Welcome to Safe Spaces and Green Spaces, a special segment of the Daily Parks and Rec Show, where we explore mental health, well-being, and the positive impact parks and recreation have on building stronger, healthier communities. Hosted by Thomas White, join us every first Wednesday of the month at 1:30 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations, real stories, and practical insights that help create safe places for everyone. In this episode, we're talking about mental health, workplace wellness, and the power of creating supportive spaces for both professionals and communities. Let's get started.
All right, we are live again. One of our latest additions to the Daily Parks and Rec Show family of shows, all geared towards parks and recreation. This show is the brainchild of Thomas White, one of the up and comers. He is a force of nature in parks and recreation. If you haven't heard him speak, he's really taken a tour throughout the country and dragging Henry County, Georgia with him. You'll see him speak at NRPA, at the Georgia State Conference. He spoke at the Louisiana Parks and Rec Association and many, many others. Their team is just doing a phenomenal job of highlighting how a very well-run Parks and Rec department handles all the different stuff that they do. And he's able to bring in their team when it comes to special events or when it comes to programming or wheelchair. We did a great show just on wheelchairs and, how they offer programming for people that are wheelchair bound and stuff. And so he came with me with the idea of, can we create a show about neurodivergence or safe spaces or therapeutic rec and have this conversation? And so we agreed to do once a month, first Wednesday of every month, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, to have a show dedicated to this. So it's 12 shows a year. And what we are uncovering that this is a massively undercovered topic inside of parks and recreation. And so I was really excited that he was open to doing this. So every month, first Wednesdays of the month with happy April 1st. So hopefully everybody gets tricked by some April Fool's joke by their spouse or somebody. If your wife is pregnant today, you might want to question it. It might be a joke she's playing on you. But yeah, really grateful for that. Thomas, thank you so much. And he has a special guest today coming on with him, Jason. And we'll get to that show here in a minute. But first, we would like to promote, what we're doing here with DPRS Media Network. We're now a family of 10 shows that air throughout the week. We're coming up on our 500th episode. This is the 491st episode. So 9 shows to go before we cross that after only 14 months. And it's just amazing the support that we're getting from the Parks and Rec community as we create a media company dedicated to the Parks and Rec industry. And then we're also, as I announced at the end of our last show, we're getting ready to launch our own social media platform specifically for Parks and Recreation. And so be looking for that. We have a soft kind of rollout among the team, and then I'll be inviting Thomas, which you're going to get an invite to this. We'll probably get about 20 to 30 of our closest Parks and Rec professionals to help us kind of build that out and giving us advice along the way. And then after that, we're going to do a promo for OutdoorLink. OutdoorLink is a company that's helping you become a smart city. So just as you have a smart home that's interconnected to your phone and can control your lights and AC and the garage door and stuff like that, imagine if your entire city was interconnected to where you could control sports field lights, splash pads, bathroom door lights, parking lot lights, all from a central location and not have to give out all these keys and padlocks and stuff. So Jovi, why don't you go ahead and run those 2 promos and then pull me off stage and then bring up Thomas and Jason so they can start a great conversation around safe spaces in Parks and Rec.
Welcome to DPRS Media Network, the voice of parks and recreation professionals, where leadership grows, facilities thrive, and communities connect. Leadership Series, insights from the leaders shaping our industry. Facility maintenance, the backbone of safe and sustainable spaces. Young Professionals Network, empowering the next generation of parks and rec leaders. The Rec Room, real conversations, real stories, real impact. Youth Sports Mastery, elevating the game for athletes and communities. Smart Parks Forward, innovation driving the future of recreation. On the front line, honoring those who serve our communities every day. Athletes Commute, the journey behind the performance. The aquatics life, everything aquatics, safety, staffing, sustainability. Safe Spaces and Green Spaces, a show exploring the connection between nature and mental well-being. And we don't just tell the stories, we show up where it happens. From local gatherings to national parks and recreation conferences, DPRS Media Network is on the ground, capturing conversations, highlighting innovation, and amplifying the voices shaping our industry's future. DPRS Media Network, connecting parks, empowering people, inspiring communities.
In today's parks and recreation industry, communication, safety, and efficiency go hand in hand. That's where Outdoor Link comes in, delivering smart technology that empowers city departments and community planners to do more, smarter. Outdoor Link's platform connects and automates everything that keeps your parks running smoothly, from lighting and locks to signage, water features, Wi-Fi, and digital advertising. Control and schedule park lights for safety and energy savings. Remotely manage facility access. Coordinate fountains and splash pads. Provide public connectivity. All from one simple, unified platform, giving you real-time control, data, and cost efficiency. For parks and recreation agencies, that means safer spaces, smarter resource use, faster responses, and stronger community engagement. And behind every great park story is great infrastructure. That's why Outdoor Link proudly supports DPRS Media Company, helping the Daily Parks and Rec Show amplify the voices of professionals shaping our communities every day. Outdoor Link, smart, connected solutions for parks, recreation, and beyond.
Welcome to Safe Spaces and Green Spaces. My name is Thomas White. I am so happy to join DPRS Media in producing this show. There's something that we just don't talk enough about in the Parks and Rec profession and the local government and state government and federal government as a whole, and that's our mental health. These are raw, unedited conversations about the struggles we all face every day, because the reality is we all face them, we all have to cope with them. If we work in an environment that makes that acceptable and even gives you resources and support when you need them, we can change the face of not just our profession, but the entire world. So we are joined here by a really great guy that I just met. So I'm really hoping and fingers crossed that he is as great as I'm saying he is. No, I just met him about 15 minutes ago, so keep that in mind. But Jason, I'm really happy to have you on here. Jason Bookheimer. Jason, tell us about yourself. Tell us where you're from. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Thomas. Really excited about today. I am Jason Bookheimer. I work for the city of Danville in Virginia, which is right on the border of North Carolina and Virginia, about an hour and a half north of Raleigh, Greensboro triad area. So we are right there on the border, but I work with our department as a division director for community recreation, but then I also support our Virginia Recreation and Park Society as a currently serving board member, but for the past 4 years, championing our statewide initiative called I Play Too.
Awesome. We have that connection here. I'm the Deputy Administrator of Recreation in Henry County. I serve on the Board of Trustees for GRPA, so our Georgia version. We have this connection here. You have and so how we met and how we got connected was, I believe it was Rachel that I reached out to. I spoke to the Young Professionals Network last year, and I reached out to them again to talk about this topic, mental health, for their show lineup for the year. And she happened to mention Jason's name. She said, have you connected with Jason Bookheimer? He is really passionate about this. And I think she's the director of tourism in Hanover County, if I got that
That's
right.
correct. Yeah, she is.
And I'm assuming y'all have a lot of contact and everything. Just tourism's a huge, huge part of Parks and Recreation. And for those of you that don't know, in most cases, your Parks and Recreation Department actually brings in a lot of the tourism that you have in your county. For example, here in Henry County, we have one of the world's top disc golf courses. We have huge tournaments that bring in economic impact, and I'm assuming it's the same way up in Virginia where you're at. I'm assuming it's the same. So
It is. We're fortunate we have in a very small city we're actually 40 square miles in the largest geographic county in Virginia, but our populations are the same size. But we have 30 plus miles of mountain bike trails that we actually are in Virginia, but we host the North Carolina high school state mountain bike championships every year and have national competitions. And we just received a Caesars casino a couple of years ago. So tourism has shifted in our city quite a bit from a full spectrum.
I bet. And what's the size of your city, just for reference point?
We are 42,000 people.
Gotcha. 42,000 people. Okay. Yeah. So, Jason, the reason that we created this show, there has been a stigma, as we all know, since the beginning on mental health struggles. That stigma has eased some, especially in our mainstream society. That stigma has eased some, but in the workplace, there is still a stigma to a degree about being able to express yourself and saying, hey, I'm struggling, or hey, my brain doesn't work the same as you do. For example, I have ADHD. I am one of what is called neurodivergent, meaning that my brain is not formed in the same way as others. I do not have the same neural pathways that others would. My executive function doesn't work the same. And because of the underformation of the prefrontal cortex, which is an important part of my brain, of course. And it used to be for the first 13 years of my career, I hid that. I didn't tell anybody. And I worked at a prison for 13 years. I was when I left, I was the acting chief of security at the IMAX prison, and came to the Parks and Rec field. And it wasn't until I came to the Parks and Rec field that I found a place where I could be open about who I am and express myself and who I am. And that has allowed me and the programs I oversee to flourish in ways that would not have been possible before. And it's because I'm allowed to be myself. The programs are allowed to function as they are. The rest of our profession faces that too. Mm-hmm. If we would create a safe space in our green spaces for people to be themselves, what could we achieve? And you have a program where you're doing that. You're fighting the stigma. You're really bringing people together. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your focus and attention to it. You pulled on a few, I think, key threads there with, culture, identification, all kinds of stuff there. And especially I think the biggest thing that we have learned and been focusing on in Virginia around I Play Too is a lot of the internal perceptions. And like you said, there's a emergence and super focus in what we do in our field around how we create those spaces or how we provide programs or services or events that can be supportive. But there's not a lot of conversation in the office around the teams that are here and what that means and how we service our own internal customers, so to speak, And so I guess, the helpfulness here can be that I think one of the things that bridges us together, and probably why we're here today talking, is the people in our field are so passionate, and they're so connected and really care about people, and really this grew out of a post-pandemic balloon of conversations and repeated conversations that I was having with colleagues and friends, and I think it was always there at some level, and then when we had our first kind of re-emergence after at an annual conference, people were hit really hard during that time. And many of us were in those spaces that turned into virtual learning centers. And, we were the people who didn't get to work from home in many cases. And we were trying to create safe park spaces, and all the folks that couldn't do things outside of their their normal lives, they were coming to our parks and spaces and groves, and it had a really, really profound effect, I think, on our profession, at least what I could see of people coming back in just extreme burnout, extreme mental, anxiety and stress. And it's almost like when everybody else was kind of pulling back a little bit, we had to work harder. And so that was the first real, like, oh my goodness, like we really need to do something. And, we talked with our board, and it was kind of one of those things of like, why aren't we doing something? I mean, we're the play people. We are the people that are supposed to be having fun and helping support people in our community. But like, can we say at a state level that we're doing that? Can we really say that? And I think the resounding no's really made it apparent that we needed to have something to step up and say, we want to be, honestly, since day one, and I don't know all of what's going on in all other states across the country, but our premise was we want to be the leader across the country and know that our members in society feel supported.
Sure.
So that's really what, got us going in this direction. And we kind of self-coined into I play too, meaning, at the end of the day, as much as I play with you, I play as well. And so it's taken, 4 years of different iterations, steps along the way. And, we can dive into kind of the timelines, or if you want to hear about the different pieces that we shifted, or, how you want to kind of take this conversation. But it's a lot of stuff that's happened in 4 years in our state.
Yeah. So first, I just want to, and I think you may really be helping to lead the way, especially when focused on the profession itself. I know that we talk about helping the community with their mental health struggles by providing resources for them. Of course, we have a lot of departments have therapeutic recreation. That's a huge part of the Parks and Recreation field, is therapeutic recreation, in which we help our special needs individuals. But beyond that, we don't really talk very much about what we do what we go through as a profession ourselves. Back in 2023, I believe it was. Yeah, 2023, I had a period to where just months and months of PTSD, and the audience has heard this before. Just PTSD from the prison was adding up. It was untreated. I didn't know that it was PTSD. I wasn't taking the ADHD serious. I had worked 26-hour weekends straight. It's just a lot of stuff piling up at one time, and I started to have panic attacks. I didn't know that's what they were. I started to have panic attacks, and eventually I just went into a deep depression and lost 30 pounds in a month. Wound up losing 50 before it was all over with, lost interest in everything. And it was my work family that helped me get through it. Obviously, my wife was there and she was supporting me, but being at work every day, it got me out of the house to where I wasn't just alone with my thoughts. And my work family helped talk me through that. And that's what got me there. And that's what made me start thinking about this. So I started doing presentations last year on the importance of mental health care in the workplace, reducing the stigma, and just allowing your people to talk about it, to acknowledge that it's real, giving training on mental health in the workplace and how we all go through it. I think we may be having a little bit of feedback. I'm gonna try muting you for just a second. I'm so sorry. You may have to mute yourself for just a second. Okay, I don't know why I did that, Jason. I'm really sorry. But but you have a much more organized format than what I was doing. I've just spoken at a couple of conferences and workshops about it. You, however, actually have a program. And so I really, like you said, I want to know the timeline, like what created this, what led to this. Did it start with your department? Did it start with your city? Did it start with the organization, with VPRS itself? So I'm going to mute myself.
Yeah. So honestly, after that conference, it was come back and had some really deep thoughts. And it was one of those of personally, being involved in our state society a lot, and just like what I found too was that there was a lot of people who didn't feel that they had support from their workplace. And honestly, that was a big disconnect, because it was like, well, how do we support people if they don't have a culture in their department, or if they feel like they can't go anywhere or talk to anyone? And so I love the name of your show, because the first step was a safe space. And that approach back was like, our society said, we don't know what this all looks like. It's kind of like, hey, I'm not a mental health expert. I don't have a doctorate. I don't have any focus on training. What I do have is a passion for my friends and my peers. And we really got to identify that we want to start with conversations. And it kind of goes back to how we do community engagement in our finest ways in Parks and Rec. Is you just have to go talk to people. It's not a survey. It's not a thing we do at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday with the community. It's going out at the times people are available and making available times to speak. And so we really started with just honestly bi-monthly open conversations on Zoom type format, sharing information, sharing resources, and just letting people have a space where they could come talk. And it was, we used like the Vegas rules in the beginning, where it's just like, hey, we're not here to give out CEUs. We're not here to do like professional learning. This is here for, what's going on in people's lives, what's going on in the field, and can we help, and how does this look? And it really, it was an important step, because it gave us a really good gauge to understand what was going on with membership in our field. And honestly, it was that first like plug where people were like, what is this? Like, what, why are we talking about this? Or like, that's really important to me. And
right.
what we also
Can you give us an idea what those first couple of while you're on this part, can you give us an idea what those first couple of meetings looked like? Because that's the question. Yeah,
we did things like, it kind of was like topical. So it could be like preparing for summer burnout, and having a slight facilitated discussion around like things you can do to help, or like what things where people are struggling with, to, hey, it's budget season, is everybody pulling their hair out type thing. We even did a like post.
Just finished that today. Yeah, that's why my hair is like it is now. I had hair yesterday. So
yeah, those budgets are always interesting. But we even followed up with our own conference and said, hey, we're going to do a I'm burned out from conference, because that's what I was hearing a lot too, with people like, man, I come to conference, I love seeing my friends, I get to learn, but then I go back to work, or I've got to work the whole time I'm there, or we've got 16-hour days planned out because we start at 8 and we got socials till 8 o'clock at night, and blah, 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 So we've tried to do things that were appropriately themed to get a conversation started, and then allow that to go with kind of like breakout rooms, stuff where groups, if they wanted to connect or just have general conversation. But it was really, really unstructured. Just really allowing the group to guide conversation and have a lot of that initial direction. And by doing that, it allowed me to go back and say, hey, I think we really need to figure out what is going on in Parks and Recreation in our state. And so like months of those conversations, and same style, we were like, all right, we're going to, present at our annual conference. We're going to, have some sessions. We're going to create some concepts around mental well-being and mental health to get this pushed out. But really what we found was, how do we actually move forward in the conversation? And a lot of our rebuttal and pushback initially was with leadership, and people who are, like, this is taboo, go back to work. Like, this isn't what we talk about. And that's where we found the most people that were trying to get an outlet were just didn't feel supported. And there was a lot of people who did as well. But, it's kind of that like really strong pull for us. So
definitely, I think that was one of the things that we heard constantly at the prison, was when officers would try to share what they're going through, the supervisors would be quick to say, no, definitely not. I have been really fortunate since I came into Parks and Rec, and that our county manager, our deputy county manager, our executive director, and then of course my boss, Donna, they have all been very, very supportive about sharing your ideas. But it's almost of a culture shock at first, going from where you have to be quiet. You can't talk about those mental health struggles that you go through into something different. And I'm sure you dealt with some hesitancy from some people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was, honestly, it was tough because you'd have a lot of people reach out too that they were like, hey, I love this, but I honestly don't feel like I can do this on my work time or like outside. And like, I'm pretty nervous about this, but can we connect one-on-one, or if you know somebody? And so, it's really a meeting people where they were at phase for us, and learning and listening. But ultimately it gave us a guidance to understand that we needed to set some, I won't say data points, but, it's like where are we? It was a big question that came up, was like, are these conversations, mirrored across the state? Are they the same? Is it very different? Like, how can we figure this out? And so our state society decided, Bailey Caston, who is our executive director, her and I worked really closely together and developed a kind of using a lot of the national kind of standards out there. We did our first statewide mental health survey. And so it was really intensive. It wasn't we were like, we don't want to give out the 3-minute, 2-question. We went with, about 125 question survey that went really in depth in different categories, from, culture to personal health to burnout to, individual ideation, self-identification, race, because all these things play factors into mental health. And it was a very, very interesting process, because we did initially get some pushback, because people were like, why would our society be supporting the resources that go into something like this? And ultimately our board stood up and with our executive director said, this is important to us, and this is something we're going to champion. And so we issued our first ever statewide survey in 2024, and we had over 150 respondents come back, and those are identified in different levels, from kind of frontline staff to directors. And what came out of that has ultimately really guided our work and our focus and intention moving forward. And we have stuff that came out of the reports that really, I won't say weren't surprising. It was kind of like, we feel like we're probably in the national average type stuff, but then it was kind of like, wow, like we just, the biggest themes that came out were just a huge disconnect between our leadership and our kind of everyday workers that are making the comments, providing the information, and then directors and stuff just having a strong disconnect. And mostly, some of the stuff like initially that shocked us was we had 1 in 3 respondents that, said they were struggling in a severe state of crisis or mental health at the time. So, we're like, you look around the room you're in, and that's small numbers. We had 86% of the people reported that they were burned out and felt like they didn't want to return to work. 70% of those people said that they felt like it was strongly impacting their work performance, and that they knew and generally felt that every day they were coming in to maybe deliver mediocre to 50% of their effort or what they felt like they could do. And the interesting thing too is they said in the past year since COVID rebound, they said they thought that there was a 90% increase in mental well-being and effects of mental health in the workplace that was negatively affecting their coworkers. So people, even if they weren't expressing it individually a lot, their coworkers were noticing a huge trend that were in their organizations. And out of those people, we had three-quarters of the respondents said that they had a negative impact in the workplace around the culture around mental health. So, as these like massive themes, kind of big bubbles started emerging, we were like, well, how does this show up on the manager's side? And so as we filtered that data, out of all those people who didn't qualify as, say, like a director, half of those respondents felt like there was no policy or steps, any kind of activities in their department that supported any kind of conversation spaces. Really that was like we have nothing response. So 50% of our people didn't have anything to support. And when we started looking at the manager side of it, what really kind of came out was we had really strong numbers. Like it was 86% of people felt like they were addressing mental well-being and mental health in their organizations. 88% of people felt like they had a complete grasp and were providing full and adequate resources to their teams. But then out of that, in the same questions for the leadership, 77% identified that they had zero identifiable processes, resources, or steps that they were currently implementing or had in place to support it. And that they had zero resources to support any employee. So it was like,
yeah, I want to dig into this. I want to dig into this a little more. We got to take a quick break really quick. But when we come back, we're going to dig into this data because the juxtaposition between those numbers is just, it's startling. Actually, it's making me feel really great about where I work. So, Jovi, let's go to break.
It started with a shared purpose, a vision to bring people together, to inspire, to learn, and to lead. And at CPRS Conference 2026, that vision came to life. From every conversation to every connection made, this wasn't just an event, it was a community in motion. Ideas were challenged, perspectives were expanded, and leaders stepped forward, ready to shape the future of parks and recreation. At DPRS Media Network, we had the privilege of capturing it all. The passion, the innovation, the stories that deserve to be seen and heard. Because these moments don't just stay here, they ripple outward, into communities, into programs, into lives. To the organizers, the speakers, the partners, and every single attendee, thank you. For showing up, for sharing your voice, and for being part of something bigger than all of us. This is more than a conference. This is a movement. And DPRS Media Network will continue to tell your story every step of the way. We'll see you at the next one. This year, we didn't just attend an event. We became part of something bigger. IPRA 2026 brought together leaders, innovators, and community builders, all united by one mission: to strengthen parks, recreation, and the people they serve. For DPRS Media Network, it was an honor to join IPRA 2026 and take part in meaningful, real-time conversations, capturing stories and amplifying voices that matter. To IPRA, thank you for creating a space where collaboration thrives and the future of parks and recreation is shaped together. We extend our deepest gratitude to Amelia and all our partners who made these live interviews possible. IPRA 2026 wasn't just an event, it was a reminder that when communities connect and stories are shared, impact follows. From all of us at DPRS Media Network, thank you, IPRA. Thank you, partners and sponsors. We're honored to stand with you and excited for what's next.
Sorry, Thomas, I think you're on mute.
I did it again. Wow, I had this whole line. It was great. So I'm not going to be able to do it that well the second time, but we're going to try. So before we go any further, I just want to know, is this your first time hearing about the Daily Parks and Rec Show?
It is. Yeah.
Good. Definitely think you should be on Craig's leadership series. Need to connect the two of you and get information there, because just the leadership that you're showing in taking this initiative and obviously you're at the forefront of the field. So we need to have you on the leadership show and give more information about why you do what you're doing and how you're doing what you're doing. But let's dive back into the numbers that we were talking about before the show. Before the show went to break, we were really the people that were being surveyed, minus the directors, the day-to-day staff that being surveyed. A lot of them said that they had big needs that weren't being met. However, the directors thought they were meeting those needs. Let's dive into that data.
Yeah, that was really our, if we had a biggest takeaway, so to speak, that as far as data, it was the disconnect between what we felt we were doing and probably what our field numbers said we were doing. And in the disconnect there, I think, and as we've continued to ask that question, how it's shown up in the past couple of years after, we still are making strides there because there's so many great examples, like you said, in your department and trying to connect and share those resources. I don't want it to sound all negative, but it does show just that, people are entitled to their feelings and that's how they feel when they're showing up. When you look at it across a statewide survey like that, from your aquatics, director to your park maintenance, parks grounds, keeper and stuff, everybody was having the same sentiment. So it's like, regardless of where you were at, we just have a disconnect between what is the kind of the energy that's driving us as a society and as parks and recreation professionals. And, I think there's a lot of diving you can do on that. And if you try to, people try to pick things apart, whether it's like ageism or, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, these folks didn't grow up in times like that. And I think there are some realities behind, at least with direct conversations with directors that say, like, it's really hard for me to understand that because, when I was growing up and the first 35 years of my career or 40 years, that wasn't a part of anything. And we were told to show up to work and, we were trained to keep feelings aside and stuff. And so it's a lot of things I think that go into it. And I don't want any directors to feel either that there's like a finger pointing, because I think everybody has backgrounds and experiences that shape who they are. And that's what we've seen too, is where our state's really trying to help push a initiative forward, is that, like, hey, no matter where you're at, like, we have resources, we have toolkits, we have, I don't want to jump forward, but it's like now we're trying to like ingrain every service area, every resource group we have across the state has this as part of their work plan. Like, you can't just skip over it. Like, we're developing it into everything. We've done numbers of things since then, but really with that identification of, if you don't understand or don't know about it, how can we connect you and how can we provide tools and resources? And then, here's a peer, here's somebody that maybe could help you kind of have some conversation. If, you and I are at still a disconnect with this conversation, maybe I want to connect you with somebody else who's like-minded and you may be able to kind of get along with. So
I Play Too is not just a group of meetings, but you're actually creating a network.
Yeah, we do. It's a huge network across the state. We really initially too, after those surveys, we were like, okay, where can we make movement? Because that was one of the biggest things where we were like, we don't want this to feel stagnant, but we just had this big survey and took a lot of people's information and personal feelings and didn't move it forward. And that really, and for us in the early stages, came across in trainings and, trauma and resiliency trainings and all kinds of stuff that was pulling into local. We break up by like service area and resource groups in our state. And so it's kind of more localized training offerings and doing big discussions at conference around it. And I'll tell you, it's, I appreciated you sharing in the beginning. So, I'll share this of kind of like what's the driving factors. And I always say, like, I Play Too, it's not me, I'm just happen to be the wheel that kind of keeps moving. But we, in the first year we did a presentation at our state conference, was really nervous,
Sure.
And myself and AJ McCage, who works for Hanover, she's been part of NRPA stuff and LDN Network. We teamed up to do this talk around I Play Too. which was really interesting because by just default, it was scheduled on September 11th. And at the time, my sister had some stuff going on health-wise, and like had to go get some screenings, and like she was supposed to call me that day. Never heard from her. So literally the day after we did the presentation, I get back home from conference the following day. I call my sister up, I'm like, hey, what's up? And she shared with me that she had been diagnosed with stage 4 colorectal cancer.
Ooh.
And sorry.
No problem. Take your time.
For me, it was like I'd spent about a year of my time really thinking about my peers. It was like, man, I just did this first true showcasing and unveiling, and like, who needs this? Like, I need this. Like, it's like, man, for all the other reasons in my life that I felt like I needed it, it was just so crazy that it hit that hard. And we were going through the planning stage of this, and at the time they gave her a worst case 2 years, and unfortunately I spent 15 days with her on New Year's Day. She got air flighted in, and she passed away on the 15th of January. So
sorry.
It really affected me, and all the people I was pulling together to be supportive were my support team, and the initiative, I don't want to say changed for me, but it just really shifted and accelerated doing a ton of information around like how we value our time, how we value our community's time, and like how I play too is so much more important. And things that are like empathetic leadership and really trying to ingrain what we're doing in this society. We have shifted our entire conferences. And it seems like maybe some small stuff in the beginning, but like looking back, I was thinking about today, we've shifted entire schedules. We have intentional shorter session times. We start later in the mornings. We do a handful of recreational opportunities built into the day, so like rec breaks, and I play 2 times. Nice. We have shortened days and more optional socials and stuff, or socials that maybe don't focus on kind of extracurricular things, and they're just kind of more of like play at your own speed.
Right.
We've taken all the kind of days that were like, you're in there for 8 hours, and it's like, that's just too much on people. And we've done a lot with messaging. And so supportive messaging of like, hey, directors, like if you're sending your staff, please allow them to disconnect so that they're not getting hammered with 20 phone calls where they're just trying to focus and learn. And so there's been a lot of positive messaging, and we have a directors conference and like a leadership training institute in the state. And all those have now ingrained iPlay 2 into what they're doing, and being intentional about messaging and delivery. And so it's very much about intentionality and consistent messaging give us deliverable results in action. And so we've tried to just stay repetitive on that since those days. And we've had some things that even have come up, like we have a Virginia Municipal League that's part of National League of Cities. Picked up on what we were doing. They're like, these are the county managers from across the state, and they were like, "What are y'all doing? Like, how do we do this? Like, we're a one person in charge of everybody."
Right.
And like they said, that was their number one feedback and unknown as far as future determination at their 2025 conference at the National League of Cities. That was the number one subject they said that came up, was they had a true struggle with how to be supportive, especially from a municipality, of mental health in the workplace. And so,
I think that, I'm sorry. I think that plus your own story really highlights how no one's immune to this. No one is immune to mental health struggles. We're all going to have it at some point. It doesn't matter how much you think you've hardened yourself. It doesn't matter how much you may think that you try to ignore those emotions. You're going to have them at some point. It's going to be there. And I think I've been in government for 20 years. The first 15 years of my government career, I heard over and over again, leave it at the door when you get here. Leave it at the door when you get here. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you should let what you're going through affect your decisions. That's not what I'm saying. But I think the leave it at the door is more nuanced than what we're just saying. If you are muting yourself to your struggles, to your emotions, it's going to ball up and eventually it's going to come out. But if you're allowed to feel that, if you allow yourself to feel that, if your managers allow you to feel that, then you're able to funnel that, to live it, to experience it, and your programming, how you're helping people, your whole attitude changes at that point. And but this leave it at the door mentality is really affecting. And I cut you off. I'm so sorry. Please go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. I mean, I think that's it in a nutshell. You know, and it's kind of you know, sometimes it seems simple. It's like, you know, asking some questions of like, do you want people to feel safe at work? Everybody answers yes. Do you want people to perform better at work? Yes. Do you want to have less turnover? Yes. Like it's like these are all the results of having a safe space and a culture that supports people. You know, and
but then in the next question, do you want to talk about mental health at work? I wonder how often it's no. Right after they say all that, and then no is the answer. And I'm curious, smaller agencies, I wonder if there's any correlation there, if smaller agencies are more often the no, because they get so busy, they get so locked down, they think they don't have time. So I'm curious if the smaller agencies may deal with that more.
Yeah, you know, we have a really good role, large, you know, kind of a metropolitan metro mixture here in Virginia. And when we dissected it like that, it's really mixed. It still came down. I think for a lot of the smaller departments and even like the singular, so I'm a director and that's the only, I am the department type folks. It came back to some of those people felt really supported because they had a city manager or a county supervisor, whoever their, you know, the title was, that had set the culture for the entire county or the city or the town that they worked in. And so it ultimately for us looked like, how does that look for your organization overall? So not just your Parks and Recreation department. You know, it's kind of like you still have the abilities to make movements and to be supportive within your own department. But also there's some good examples of where like the Parks and Rec department directors have been the leader for their entire organization in setting those, you know, kind of gold standards. Cause I think of it, you know, my sister's case, the only place the doctors would allow her to go when she was in treatments was a local park where she wouldn't have much interaction. So literally in the last 4 months of her life, her favorite and best place that she got to experience was the local park to where she was getting treatment at. And that really changed my perspective on how we deliver service. You know, it's kind of like, do I walk by the piece of trash now that's sitting by the park bench, or do I leave this? And so like, that's a whole nother conversation of how we deliver service. But I think it ultimately all comes back to like that formation of the true culture, and like, you know, not having a culture or not saying you don't have a true culture, that is a statement in itself. You know, like if you can't readily identify it or say like, this is what we do, or these are the practices. And I think that's going back to our survey. That's what was, you know, that highlight point was like, I really can't put my finger on it, but I know we're doing it, you know? And so I think that's the tangibles that as we're shaping up actually we said every 3 years, we're going to do a repeat survey to see like where we're at and, you know, where do we need to refocus or shift and stuff. And so
I would be really curious to see that data when you get ready to do it next time, just to hear not to see the data, but to hear your report on the data. Just to see where it's come from that. How long have you been, when was the first survey done? Last year?
It was actually in 2024. So we're literally ramping up right now. We've got some great, for 2027 will be our update. And we're hoping, we have some good partners we work with at the University of Virginia that are going to help step in and help us see and navigate some of the information and dissect it. They weren't a part of the initial development and output of the first one, but they stepped in and helped with the screening and kind of digestion of all the information and gave us some really nice information to use in summaries moving forward. And so I think that's something that if people are interested in. There's a local university or a state university somewhere that has grad students that are out there looking for these type of projects, and it's like, it's in 3 more years, when we have 3 survey sets and we've got 6 years of data, whatever it is to look at, we can really make some strong arguments at that point. And I think that that's what our state society is poised to do. Is it's not for us, it's like, it comes down to the very acute level where you make changes literally in your. So, like when we're speaking to people, it's like, hey, if you're a leader and you have a staff of 1, or if you're by yourself, like these are things that you can do for yourself. These are practices. These are things that we want you to be able to use, even if you don't have a supportive culture. Mm-hmm. But then it's like you can still make change. And so elevating that up to where, how can our executive director have those conversations at a state and government level, and can we pull funding in, and can there be line items that get put in a state budget for support like this? And
I think you just nailed it. I think you just nailed something really important, and that 2 things that I'm trying to do and trying to reach people. One, I want to reach those leaders that are over the departments, and the reason that we have such a great and supportive department is our executive director lets us, he cares, he calls, he talks to us when we have issues. And our department is 200 plus people. So he really has to care to be able to call so many people. And Donna, my boss, our director, she is really, our deputy director, she is really, wow, I can't say enough about how much they care. I just can't. And they allow you to be open. But more than that, when they see that there's something wrong, they don't just ignore it, they ask. And so they set that pace. But a message that I try to get out, and not just about this, but whenever I do a session on motivating people and inspiring and any type of transformational leadership session that I do, I always say the same thing, and it applies here with this as well. If your agency's not like that, you can still make the change. You can be that person that has that change happen. It has to start somewhere. Maybe that person is you.
Yeah, I agree. Probably most people like yourself, you sit in a situation like this within for us chatting, and it's kind of like, I don't know if you ever really sat down and went like, yeah, that's me. That's what I'm going to be. And you become champions of things. But I think when you feel passionate about something and you feel like there's a need, what is it? The necessities, the basis for all innovation and invention. So, I think, like you said, at the end of the day, everybody knowing too that there's resources like Safe Spaces or I Play Too, or a network of people across the country that care about humanity at the end of the day. Like that's important to be able to know where you can connect, and that there is somebody, especially if people are feeling like they're in a leadership bubble or a personal bubble that they just don't have it, like there's somebody out there, and making that reach or that first step is important. I'd be remiss if I didn't keep the whole premise of like I Play Too is about having fun, right? It's like some of those things that I left out, but just think about too is like, it's just at the end of the day, like trying to have some fun and peace in life, and like, finding outlets. And like we were able to partner with one of our state, or I guess it's a national partners, King's Dominion here, and they hosted a I Play Too play day, and every Parks and Recreation professional in the state got to bring their family and have free day at the park. That happened now 2 years in a row. We're looking at the 3rd year coming up, and so stuff like that. And we're already spurring off to there's a group that wants to do a women's camping experience and kind of a women's weekend for outdoors and connected with nature. And so it's like, we were sitting on a beach 4 years ago at a conference talking about how rough life was. And, many people involved in this and providing energy is kind of like with Rachel, like she's been a part of it and sat in sessions, and we've had conversations about stuff, and here we are. So
Right.
I think
Yeah.
I think that
Connecting
first step.
people.
Yeah, it's like you said, it can be very taboo, and it's tough to make the conversation, or tough to get involved in it. And so, encourage everyone out there, and personally and stuff, and just if you can have that first conversation, usually the next one's a little easier.
Man, you're 100% right. And now that we're at the end, I want you to think of something really quick. And this is how I'm trying to end every show. What is something, if you had to choose just one statement, it doesn't have to be a sentence, but just one thing that you want to leave with people watching right now, say they're just tuning in for 60 seconds. What do you want them to know? What do you want to leave with them?
The Parks and Recreation field cares about you.
I think, yeah, wow, that was powerful. The Parks and Recreation field cares about you. Wow. We serve the public. That's why a lot of us are in this. I am literally in Parks and Recreation because I saw the TV show Parks and I can make the idealism of Leslie Knope. I said, I can make a department actually that. When I got into Parks and Recreation, I did not realize how much the TV show actually downplayed how chaotic and funny Parks and Recreation is. But no, I remember one of those one-person departments from my childhood in the town that I grew up in. And I remember him working countless hours he went to my church, and I remember him just working countless hours trying to bring people together and trying to give them something with almost no money to do it. And that stayed with me to where I'm at now. We care about the public, but we also care about you. We care about the professionals in that. And we have to care about each other. So Jason, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, Thomas. I really appreciate the time, and thank you so much. And if people are looking to connect with, reach out, and would love to continue conversations at another point.
I think it'll be great for you. But as we leave out, I want to talk to all the viewers for just a second. You are not alone. You are not alone. All of us are going through something. All of us have emotional baggage, mental baggage that we carry every day, and we may not know how to navigate or even carry that baggage. We don't feel like we're heard. We don't feel like we're supported sometimes. The reality is, you can be that change where you're at right now. You can minimize how others feel that way. You can be there to support them, to bring them up, to help lift them to a new life. Every single one of us, we are enough exactly how we are. You are enough to make change. You are enough to change somebody else's life. You're enough to change your own life where you're at right now and what you're going through. It's okay to feel what you're feeling. It's okay to feel it in the workplace. Thank you so much for listening. Welcome to Safe Spaces for Green Places.
Before the game, before the lights, before the pressure, there's a moment most people never see. Welcome to The Athlete's Commute, a podcast distributed by DPRS Media Network, co-produced by Her Sports, and hosted by Jordan Ziff. Each episode, Jordan gets behind the wheel, driving athletes to practice, to training, to game day, while getting to know who they really are beyond the jersey. The mindset, the grind, the sacrifices, the moments no one talks about. No scripts, no filters, just real conversations in real motion. Because every athlete has a journey, and every journey deserves to be heard. This is The Athlete's Commute. Buckle up.
Are you a vendor, brand, or service provider ready to connect with the heartbeat of local communities? At DPRS Media Co., we tell the stories shaping parks and recreation across America. Through podcasts, live streams, videos, and newsletters, we reach frontline leaders, city directors, and decision makers every single week. From youth sports and facilities to programming and policy, our audience is your audience. Sponsoring or partnering with DPRS Media Co. puts your brand in front of the professionals who build, budget, and buy for their communities. Launching a new product, growing your presence in public spaces, targeting cities, counties, or departments, DPRS is your trusted media partner. Whether you're in software, turf, aquatics, robotics, smart cities, or special events, partnering with DPRS puts your brand in the story. With commercials, interviews, social campaigns, newsletters, and live shows, we're your media team. Partner with us and grow your impact in the $200 billion parks and rec industry. DPRS Media Co. Stories that move parks and rec forward. Your audience is here. Let's meet them.